Good morning. Welcome to the Maryland Department of Planning's Planning Director Roundtable. My name is Chuck Boyd, and I am the Director of Planning Coordination for the Maryland Department of Planning. This is our second virtual Planning Directors Roundtable. We had about 80 people the last time in April, and we've registered 80 for this one, so we're not doing that bad, and we haven't scared away too many people, even though I know there is another conference going on right now. And so I'm hoping that you're going to have an informative discussion with us today, and we welcome your participation, and thank you again for attending. So one of the things that before I get started, I want to have a couple of announcements. So many of you have already received probably notices from MDOT that October is Walktober, and October 7th is the official Walk Maryland Day. If you haven't already signed up for one of the 4 webinars scheduled in October, I encourage you to go to Google and type in Maryland Walktober, and you'll get to MDOT's website. And I encourage you to look at the different available webinar sessions and sign up for those that you think would be of interest to you. Secondly, I want to let you know about we have some upcoming Smart Growth Network webinars, and we've had over 30 this year, this fiscal year, and we had really great attendance, and we're going to continue to have those in this fall throughout the winter. Feel free to visit smartgrowth.org website, or we'll be giving you sending out notices for those upcoming events as well. So we're recording today's Planning Directors Roundtable and anticipate posting it on our website. Probably won't be, probably will take us 2 weeks this time. John Coleman's on vacation, so the final editing will be a little bit delayed. But on that website at planning.maryland.gov, you can also look to see some of the attached webinar presentations, the PDFs of those presentations. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email letting you know that that information is available, and encourage you to take a look at that. Especially we'll be sending to everyone on the invited list for those that weren't able to join us today. Just a quick refresher for those that have maybe not used GoToWebinar before. The GoToWebinar platform is pretty easy to work with. We will be utilizing the raised hand portion during Joe Griffith's presentation, particularly during the pandemic discussion of local pandemic planning. And so I encourage you to ask any questions during the different presentations. We will have a Q&A after each of the presentations. Put those questions in the question box, and you can also look to see who's attending today's participation. I see that we have about 68 participants on the line just already. So again, I'm really pleased that we have such great participation in this. And again, thank you for showing up. One of the first things we would like to do, though, is before we get started, is actually to ask you to participate in a quick poll to show where people are. We gave you a little map here to help locate yourself. So at this point, I'm going to ask Michael to put up a poll. Want to know where are you in the state? And we will give you a few minutes. If you are having problems clicking on it, please exit out of full screen mode, and you'll be able to participate in the poll. We're getting almost all done here, getting good results. Okay, looks like most of you from the Eastern Shore this time. Oh, I'm sorry, little small screen on my part here. Michael, can you read those? I'm not able to really read those.
Sure. So exactly half are from Central Maryland, 35% Eastern Shore, 7% Western Maryland, 6% Southern Maryland, and 2% from the Capital Region. And we recognize that they're also having a conference today, so that's probably where they're all at.
Yeah, those people in the Capital Region, they have been great sessions, so I wouldn't be surprised that we've lost participation on that. So no, that's good. That's good participation. I'm glad to see we have good participation throughout the state. So today's speakers, we have Andrew Mengel from Department of Natural Resources. He's the stewardship and planning administrator in their land acquisition planning unit. And he's going to talk today about the land preservation parks and recreation plan guidelines that have been recently updated and in preparation for your next round of the LPPRP. He's also going to go over some of the new tools that they have for you to be utilizing during that preparation. So Al Sandera and I are going to, Al Sandera is the manager of the planning projections and state data center. He and I are going to go over some new approaches in the Department of Planning related to our growth model effort, and I'm excited to really share with you some of our efforts in that respect. Joe Griffiths will be then presenting on a tour of our very recent housing element models and guidelines, which we posted about a month ago. And then finally, he's going to have a facilitated discussion with local representatives from Washington, Kent, Worcester County, and the city of Frostburg regarding their efforts in during the how to do outreach and planning during the pandemic. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Secretary of Planning Robert McCord and ask him to share a few words with you before we start the webinar. Thank you. Welcome, Secretary McCord.
Thank you, Chuck, and thanks. It's really good that you guys can see me and hear me this time. Last time, I don't think we had too much of either, so we've evolved a bit. And I'm going to begin, just three things I have today. I'll begin by thanking each county and municipal planning department for everything that you've done to support a complete count in the census. That's been my life for more than a year and a half now, more than a year and a half. But the locals have been great in getting the state to where we are today. We remain in the top 10 at 70.4% self-response rate. That's beyond the 2010 response rate for the state, despite COVID. And the federal partners are working hard with 26.8% of the non-response follow-up completed. So we have 96.9% total enumeration in our state. That's just 2.8% left to go. And that couldn't happen without the partnerships, without the cooperation of everybody throughout the state, and I'm very much appreciated for that. There are 17 out of 24 counties that are beyond their 2010 rates. In this last week, the focus should be on census tracts with the highest number of households left to be counted. That's what we're pushing from the Department of Planning side. I've been crisscrossing the state trying to make myself present at some of these events that are going on, trying to make sure we show that the state is interested in making sure everybody gets counted. But I also have to, from more than 2 years ago, thank you for your help with the local update of census addresses. That LUCA work that you did together with the Department of Planning and sometimes simply on your own, that will pay off in the end as these addresses are reconciled and the double counts are dropped out. That will actually push the percentages up just even a little bit more. So thanks for that preliminary work that was done more than 2 years ago. So number two, I'd like to thank you for your participation on our continuing education through our webinars. We're trying to bring you some thought leaders and some issues of the day that are useful to you. Planning is a discipline concerned with how we look in the future. The pandemic is challenging us to look at how our life together looks physically, senior housing, congregate living, and how we will work and rethink office buildings and suburbs and cities and main streets. But we're also experiencing social issues that come to the top of our collective consciousness. And they challenge how our life together can be more of a life together in every sense. And then thirdly, we continue to develop these integrated data products and applications, these tools that we make available statewide to make it easier to build a better community. I encourage you to give us your comments and your suggestions on how we make all these tools even better and how we can make them work better for you. I am grateful, my parting words here, I'm grateful that throughout Maryland, there are professionals whose discipline looks to the future. Enjoy that professional camaraderie. Every once in a while, turn off the television, but turn to personal relationships. That's the very foundation of our humanity. So we can have our feet on the ground and look to the future, and today start to plan for better tomorrows. But it starts with that personal relationship, and I want you to continue that relationship, even though it's difficult at this time. Continue that professional camaraderie. And I want to wish you all a great roundtable. I will not be able to stay for the entire thing, but I really am pleased that I was able to speak with you again today. Thank you very much, guys. Turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Secretary McCord. Thanks, Chuck. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining. I'm Andrew Mengel with the Land Acquisition and Planning Unit at the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm going to be covering the 2022 Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan Guidelines, including some new resources that we have available for local jurisdictions this planning cycle. See if I can hide this. So the counties in Baltimore City use their LPPRPs as an opportunity to collect and evaluate parks, recreation, and land preservation data. Local jurisdictions use these plans to identify the rates of public participation in specific types of recreation and the availability of facilities that support those types of recreation. There's also emphasis placed on the proximity of park facilities to where people live, and especially to underserved communities. These plans also serve as a resource that provides the public with an overview of the status of the issues that are outlined in these guidelines and the jurisdiction's strategies for improving recreation access. In addition to the LPPRPs acting as a platform for parks and recreation goals, they also serve as an opportunity for counties to identify strategies for improving natural resource and agricultural land preservation. These lands are typically differentiated from parks and recreation lands in that they normally don't allow public access, but forests and wetlands conserved in their natural state provide ecosystem services like water filtration, carbon sequestration, and stormwater management, and preserving contiguous tracts in targeted areas protects wildlife habitats. Conserving working agricultural lands provides food and cover for wildlife and preserves Maryland's rural character. Many counties already collect and disseminate information on agricultural land preservation through their participation in the certification of county agricultural land programs. This was created in 1991 and is jointly administered by the Maryland Department of Planning and MALF. So LPPRPs are also connected to a few state and federal funding sources. The preparation and regular update of an LPPRP is a prerequisite for county participation in Maryland's program Open Space, which provides annual grants for the acquisition and development of public recreation facilities statewide through partnerships with local sponsors. And LPPRPs are also used as a source of information in the preparation of Maryland's statewide land preservation recreation plan, which is required to maintain Maryland's eligibility in the Land and Water Conservation Fund's grants program. And many of you may have heard about the recent passing of the Great American Outdoors Act, which permanently funds the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And the past amounts that have been allocated to the program have been well below the $900 million authorized in the original act. So us maintaining Maryland's eligibility for this funding through the preparation of the LPPRPs and the statewide LPRP is an important consideration as well. So these are some of the notable changes that we have for 2022. We've introduced a new park equity mapping tool. We're standardizing reporting standards in GIS data collection. We're requiring coordination with municipalities. And we've added some additional resources for counties to consider in their planning process. So first, I'm going to cover the new park equity mapping tool that we're introducing for this planning cycle. This tool was developed by the University of Maryland's Institute for Applied Environmental Health with support from both DNR and NOAA. It's built on US Census tract data and statewide maps of public parks and recreation facilities. And the model combines multiple data sets to create a comprehensive park equity score, which can identify communities that need more access to parks and green spaces. So areas that are shown on the map that are a darker orange, those represent areas that are considered underserved or areas that need additional recreational access. There's also additional data sets included with this tool, like pollution exposure information, other environmental hazard exposures, and socioeconomic data, but those aren't factored into the overall park equity scores. So what I've done here is I've gone into the tool and clicked on a census tract in Queen Anne's County. And when you click on any census tract, an information display will pop up where you can see all the individual data sets that make up the park equity score for that tract. So this panel shows each of the individual data sets and the scores for each of those data sets to give more context as to why a certain census tract might be showing a higher or lower overall park equity score. And this also allows you to filter down by each of these data sets and look at the scores spatially on a county or statewide level. So in the case of distance to public park space, which I pulled up here, lighter areas are going to be those where populations are closer to public park space, and darker areas are those where populations are more distant. So each of the individual data sets are what University of Maryland found in their literature review to be the most common factors that determine whether people engage with park spaces in their communities. So those data sets are population density, we have socioeconomic data, age data, both for children under 18 and adults over 65, park proximity data, including access to public transit or walkability, and minority and non-English speaking population data, all of which contribute to the overall park equity scores that you see when you first enter into the tool. So now I've pulled up the menu showing the additional context layers that are available in this tool. These are all the additional resources that are available for local jurisdictions to use based on their local planning priorities. None of these additional context layers affect the overall park equity scores, with the exception of the parks layer that I have pulled up right now. This layer shows the polygonal data that we have for parks and recreation facilities. So the distance to public park space layer that we looked at in the previous slide is informed by these shapes and their proximity to census tracts. This just makes sure that larger parks like South Mountain State Park or Gunpowder Falls aren't put on the same scale of accessibility as something like a small community park or playground. So this planning round, whenever DNR is requesting spreadsheet or inventory data, we're also requesting GIS data. So that's going to include county protected public lands, land preservation data that's going to conform to Chesapeake Bay Program's essential protected lands data standards, public land and water trails in county parks and natural areas, parking location in county parks and trailheads, and public hunting areas. We're also asking that parks inventory data adhere to the data fields that we've provided in our sample inventory spreadsheet that will be included with the LPPRPs to make sure everyone is reporting on the same data categories. All of this is going to create more usable statewide comparison data for future planning rounds and the preparation of Maryland's statewide LPRP. So we've also added language in several sections requiring coordination with municipalities. We want to ensure that the LPPRPs are considering all residents, so we're requiring coordination between counties and their municipalities when identifying any land acquisitions or park developments. We'd also like to see the inclusion of language displaying municipal park and recreation priorities in the LPPRPs, including strategies for how those projects will be funded and how municipal projects are represented in the CIPs. And municipalities will also be given a chance to review the draft LPPRPs before they're submitted to DNR and MDP. So another change we've made for this planning cycle is the inclusion of additional resources for counties to consider. These are all going to be optional topics that we're encouraging counties to cover in their LPPRPs, and we've added resources for counties to be able to address these. So we have habitat succession as a result of climate change and sea level rise, source water protection areas, restoring brownfield sites for recreational use, and supporting children in nature. So as sea levels rise, wetland habitats are going to become inundated and they'll need space to retreat to upland areas. And at the same time, development pressure around coastal areas will put pressure on these ecosystems and limit their ability to migrate. So what we've done is we provided a link to DNR's Greenprint website so counties can identify wetland adaptation areas that might be a priority for local land preservation. And we're also providing DNR's Coastal Atlas tool as an additional resource that they can use to identify and map those areas. And DNR's Greenprint and Coastal Atlas data can also be used to identify areas with critical infrastructure or properties that might be vulnerable to flooding hazards. And keep in mind as well that Maryland's Coast Smart Construction Law requires the consideration of coastal flooding and sea level rise in construction of any state infrastructure projects. And the siting guidelines require avoiding construction in areas that are likely to be inundated within 50 years. So Maryland Department of the Environment began a program in 1999 to assess the vulnerability to contamination of public drinking water sources. The program uses three main tools for assessing the drinking water sources: delineating the boundaries of areas that provide source water for public systems, inventorying potential sources of contamination, and determining the susceptibility of the public water system to those contaminants. So we've also provided a link to MDE's GIS data designed to analyze source water protection areas, and counties can decide if those areas may also be a priority for local land preservation. A brownfield site is a property where reuse or redevelopment might be complicated by the presence of hazardous substances or pollutants. And right now there are approximately 1,800 brownfield sites in Maryland. The EPA will actually provide grants and technical assistance for cleaning these up and reusing them. And we feel that converting these properties to recreational uses would be a great way to clean up some of these sites and repurpose them. Maryland Department of Planning also has their Brownfield Redevelopment Assistance Program, which can help in taking advantage of those EPA funding opportunities, as well as providing additional technical assistance. And links to all of these resources and explanations of how to identify brownfield sites in local jurisdictions have been included in the LPPRP guidelines. In 2017, Governor Hogan signed an executive order that established Project Green Classrooms. This created a program designed to provide environmental education and ensure that children develop a connection with nature. So public parks can play an important role in this, as well as getting classrooms and families outside to experience these natural areas. And we're asking that counties consider including goals designed to support increased access for children to natural areas for educational opportunities. Especially with the advent of remote learning this year, there's been a renewed interest in outdoor educational opportunities. And partnerships that are in place for this type of education could also be discussed in LPPRPs. So this is our planned development timeline from today to December 31st of next year, when counties will submit their drafts. Right now, counties have been reviewing these guidelines and developing a general outline of what their plans will look like. Currently, or within the next month, they'll begin inventory data collection and open up recreational surveys to the public. In winter, they'll begin level of service analysis using both inventory and collected user demand data. And they'll begin developing their overarching goals. In summer of 2021, they'll continue with public engagement and begin developing strategies for reaching the overarching goals that were established in winter of this year. And by fall of 2021, they'll complete their first draft of their LPPRPs and seek public input as needed. And it's at this point that they'll also provide a copy to municipalities to review. And December 31st, 2021, counties will submit their draft LPPRPs to DNR and MDP. So with that, I think we can go ahead and turn it over if there are any questions.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. That was extremely informative. And again, the Department of Planning is very excited to partner with DNR and look to provide technical assistance to local governments as they pursue the updating of their LPPRP. At this point, I don't have any questions, but I encourage folks that have questions of Andrew to please put those into the question box and submit them, and then I will relay them to Andrew. I also want to point out that we have the agenda as one of the handouts that you can access on the side of the information toolbox that's on your screen. It lists the upcoming agenda items. And so I do have the first question from Robert Mitchell. Says training assistance on the equity tool. Can you elaborate more on if there's training regarding that, Andrew?
Yeah, we're actually going to announce webinars for that by the end of this week. I've already talked to the development team at University of Maryland and some internal folks, and we're going to put some together just to, if counties do have any questions about how to use the tool, and we're going to have a more in-depth explanation of how they can use everything that's available in there.
Excellent. Do you have, is that a local, is there a DNR contact, or is that going to be with the University of Maryland as the primary if someone has an initial question?
If someone has a question, they can contact me and I can get in contact with the University of Maryland.
Okay, great. We have another one. Is there a strategy of getting public output during the COVID? Do you have any thoughts on that? I think we'll have some discussion about that later on, but that's Rachel brings an interesting question. If folks at DNR have been discussing how they would advise folks regarding public outreach.
Yeah, it's a good question. I know this was a topic that was covered in the last Planning Directors Roundtable as well, which is available on YouTube if anyone wanted to watch that. I don't have anything personally to add to that, but I'm interested to hear what everyone has to say in this session on that topic, which I believe we'll be covering later.
So Andrew, do you anticipate when you talked about in your presentation about the getting surveys? So do you have examples from past experiences that someone would maybe reach out to a jurisdiction that did a survey in the past that given the I assume predominantly those surveys would be online?
Yeah, we provide some links to online surveys in the tool, or I'm sorry, in the actual guidelines themselves, which were also included during the last planning cycle. But I'm sure in this one, it's going to be even more important to have that outreach go through those online polls. So we have included some examples so the local jurisdictions can take a look at those and take questions that they think might be pertinent and add them into their own.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, have a question that asks, are you considering any design elements in the proposed park sites that would be used for food commodity distribution during the response and recovery to an emergency?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are you considering designing elements into the proposed park sites that could be used for food/commodity distribution during the response and recovery? So I guess one of the things that this raises is the thoughts of and again, I don't know if you have any opportunities for sharing, but some jurisdictions may actually have their parks serve multi-purposes, particularly during the pandemic of some type of food distribution or even a response center. Are there guidelines or are there going to be identifying best practices in this area of the possible design of parks?
No, that wasn't something that we had considered including. It's primarily based on public access to recreational facilities and the demand for those facilities in that jurisdiction. So that's not something that was really in the purview of these planning guidelines.
Okay. And do you have or have you thought about sharing best practices that you anticipate seeing through the LPPRP process with just for ongoing planning and design purposes for parks possibly?
Yeah, there are some better guidelines that we would like to share, some good examples of stuff that we would like to see included. So we will be sharing that.
Okay. Give a couple more minutes just for other folks that may have some questions of Andrew regarding the preparation of the LPPRP. Andrew's contact information is on the screen. We will share these presentations and contact information for later on. If your question's not answered right now, we will make sure that Andrew gets it, or please contact Andrew directly with respect to any questions in the preparation of the LPPRP. So I don't see any more questions. Well, let me see here. Got one more question here. Got two questions. One more question. Can you explain in more detail what you anticipate in the way of coordination with municipalities? Should they be preparing their own info to supply to the counties, or is it anticipated that the counties will prepare this info inclusive?
So the counties are still going to be the ones who are preparing the plans, but we're asking them to take into account any municipal planning priorities as well. So if local municipalities wanted to put something together to present to the county, just to make sure everything's included and put together in a very straightforward way, we would definitely encourage that as well. But they don't need their own separate plans to the county plans. The plan's going to be created by the county and informed by information coming from the municipality.
Great. Yes. I think you hit the point, is that as my understanding is you want to make sure that there is good communication and coordination between the municipalities and the county as the county prepares the plan.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Okay. Any more questions out there? People are feverishly typing, I'm sure. I don't want to go off of this subject without giving everyone a chance to pipe in. Well, Andrew, I'm going to thank you right now, and I'm going to wrap up this session. Again, please reach out to Andrew at andrewmingle@maryland.gov. And we will post his presentation, and you can get him, contact him if you have questions with respect to the preparation of LPPRP. We're going to now move on to the next topic, which is the presentation of my lucky presentation, as soon as I can figure out how to get out of one screen into another. Apologize. Okay. Okay, I need to, this technology is so wonderful, folks. I need to present accept the presentation, so I apologize for trying to figure out how to get to that point of the, I got it. Okay, sorry about that. I think I'm up and running. Just got to get on the right page, and okay, good to go. So we are now on to discussing about rethinking Maryland's growth model approach of the past, and Al Sendera is going to work with me on this, and I'm going to do the initial presentation portion of it, and then Al's going to follow up on his part, And so again, appreciate your attention to this. And at the end, we really want to get your reaction and thoughts and suggestions about this. I've got some guiding principles that I want to share with you first that I have had 25 years of local experience, and coming to the state, I did not forget about the fact that I was formerly a local planner. So, okay, so as I was developing this presentation and discussing it with our partners, there are what I would call 9 principles of that I've really looked at and felt that we need to keep in mind as we rethink our growth management tools. And the first and foremost is that it's critical for us to improve the sharing. There's a lot of data collected at the state level and the local level. We just talked about the LPPRP and all the data collection there. We got to break those silos down between the state agency, between local government, and state government, and so the sharing is critical. Not only that, obviously we have to really reduce the amount of times we have to collect the same information over again in multiple, different forms. So we really want to reduce the redundancy. And again, I think that by sharing and coordinating that data collection, we can avoid that. And one of the big premises that I have had working at the state is that I really want to avoid, asking for more things, new things. And so with respect to this approach, we really want to avoid asking you to do anything new, but we are going to ask for you to share information that you're already doing. So hopefully that's not considered a new ask, but just to share the information. We obviously want to identify those key areas and data sources that you already are collecting that can help inform not only other state agencies, but other local governments around there as well. One of the things that we want to really stress is the why are we doing this, and explain that and make sure that our analysis is as transparent as possible. One of the frustrations I had when I was at the local level looking at some of the state stuff that was being done is that I thought it was somewhat of a black box, and it was, trust me, and we know what we're doing here. I really want to avoid that perception that it's a black box. So we're trying to make it as transparent as possible, the things that go into the growth model tools, as well as I hope to show you that it's really a building block process, that everything is really kind of related. And so it's important for us to build trust on each one of the different components along the way. Another important aspect of this is that, we don't want to continue to ask for data collection of things and then, forget about them later on. So we want to be committed to, and I'm committed to, whatever we're going to ask for data collection or coordination of data at the local level, we're committed to maintaining that moving forward. So it's not wasted effort. So that's an important bond of trust between the state Department of Planning and local levels. Again, our data and tools, and hopefully you'll see as we go through this, that they're really going to be designed and intended to be used for planning at the local level, as well as assist our state agency partners. But we also want to make sure that those tools and data collection allow for easy transferability to third-party planning tools that might be out there. So we're, again, mindful of that we're just part of a bigger process, very reliant upon local information, because locals really know what's going on. So we want to work closely with our local partners. And then finally, we can't build this all at once. These tools, they're going to be incrementally built, and we want to continue to revisit them, improve them. We want to get your input into that process. So these are the guiding principles of this whole effort. So again, as I was thinking about this process and how to convey it, I really think that the growth management tool is really has a foundation of these 8 different areas that are different data sets that we have been collecting for many times in different forms and over the times. And believe it or not, these data sets, go into an analysis section. And so I want to again try to stress that we need to feel comfortable and work with you at the local level and the foundational components, then build upon that trust in developing these analysis tools that we have previously done and some that we may hopefully do in the future, and then finally developing metrics and other indicators that may be utilized either at the state level or possibly even locally as you do your planning process. So I want to go through real quickly each one of these different components so that you have a good sense of where we are in some of these things. So you all probably know about Maryland Property View. It's been around since 1996. Finder Quantum is a open source version of essentially Maryland Property View. Maryland Property View is configured for Esri, but it includes a lot of valuable information, and it connects the tax maps with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. And one of the things I would you be thinking about, and feel free to put questions in this or let me know later on. I've heard in public meetings about concerns about the aesthetic quality of the data, or they can't get certain things, or whatever it is. We are very interested in learning more about any opportunities to improve the quality of the underlying STAT data, or improving the relationship and communication and coordination with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. So, and then I'll note that we have recently had some updates available for you that are available online. And the Finder Online tool is a really valuable tool to be able to view much of the data that's from the Maryland Property View and Finder Quantum. Generalized zoning is one, and I often like to call this really generalized zoning and local zoning. This is an effort that we've done over the years. We're currently in the process of updating the generalized zoning, and we're going to collect local zoning maps, and I want to capture the development standards of each jurisdiction. Keep in mind that on a statewide basis, every jurisdiction has their own different flavor of zoning. So it becomes challenging when you try to relate a state application or a state analysis across the state, and given the fact that everyone's got their own different zoning. So we're trying to make every effort to not only capture generalized zoning, but also the specifics of your standards at the local level. And we'd like to develop tools that allow for a generalized zoning, but when they want to delve down into something local, that we either kind of hand it off to you at the local level, or we capture maybe a summarized version that could be that accurately reflects that. To do that, we really want your help in that process. And so we're doing an update right now. We're hoping to start in November. Our regional planners will be contacting you. We're going to be taking what we've already done and collected and sharing it with you, and asking for you to make sure we didn't miss something. We want to obviously coordinate with respect to getting the most up-to-date versions of your maps as well. So that'll be starting in November, and we're hoping that you can help us and do a review within a month if possible. One of the other tools that we've actually had on our recently promoted, I think about in the past year, has been a Maryland Protected Lands dashboard, which really summarizes all of your good efforts at the local level on land preservation, the park systems. You have the easement acquisitions through MALF or your local land preservation efforts. So we tabulate that information in a tabular form as well as in a mapping form. We provide these resources for potentially download. We work in close partnership with DNR and MALF in that data collection process and the mapping, and to provide this capable of being organized either at statewide, regional, or at the county level. We do quarterly updates, and it's just been recently updated. So if you haven't taken a look at this, and again, this information gets folds into subsequent analysis. Now we have maintain a growth tier map composite of all the growth tier maps that have been adopted. This is not something that we publish online. Locals often have their own versions of this that you publish, but this information we try to maintain it and utilize it, incorporate it into our analysis, particularly when we do the development capacity analysis. Obviously, we have a priority funding area map that we maintain. You may have viewed this online with us. We work closely in partnership with local governments, make sure it's as accurate as possible. We try to work with you to identify those future areas, those areas that you want to designate as a priority funding area, and to the extent that we can make them all comply with and confirm that they meet the PFA requirements, we do that, and occasionally if we can't. We are working actually to enhance this particular tool. We're getting a lot of requests, particularly in the area of housing, for people to send letters to them for confirmation. Often they need them for documentation when they are getting loans. We're actually going to be working on developing some more automation to allow for you to have a self-generated letter generated off of that map. So look to see for improvements in that area. And again, we're looking to get any suggestions on how to enhance the quality of that. And we would glad to work, our regional planners would glad to work with you to address any local concerns you might have. Water and sewer service areas, we essentially get the water and sewer maps from the counties. We also get the approvals from MDE, and we incorporate those, and we want to make sure every so often we do coordination checks with the county to make sure we have the most up-to-date maps in case there's anything. So we don't publish this as a general rule at this point, although we could, and if there's an interest in doing that, we'd be looking into that. But we utilize this again predominantly in our development capacity analysis and looking into other analysis related to water and sewer service areas. The building permit area is one that we currently get data from the census. Many of the jurisdictions submit the census information on the building permit survey, and we get a report out of that from the census. We also have folks at the local level submit annual reports, particularly when they have more than 50 permits a year. The Baltimore Metropolitan Council does a great job in really consolidating and reporting out the Baltimore metro region building permit activity. It's an excellent model for us to possibly expand to a statewide effort. So we're going to actually have a follow-up survey that I will be sending out to you to initiate a discussion about what your current building permit software is. We actually had some requests from information from local jurisdictions about getting more information about building permit software system. And so we see an opportunity to improve the sharing, to find out, okay, who all has certain vendors? Is it was your system homegrown, or was it something that's a third party? So we want to look into that. And we also want to see if there's opportunity for us to possibly, like BMC, collect information from all the different counties and jurisdictions, consolidate it, and report out on a certain select number of indicators. So if you haven't seen Baltimore Metropolitan Council's building permit activity report, I encourage you to take a look at it. It's an excellent information from an economic development perspective, and I think it it may be an important part in our enhancing our projections in other areas. And I think Al will go into more detail of why we are interested in that particular area. I'm not going to talk too much about this because Al's going to address this, but obviously we get a lot of census information, and that folds into our analysis efforts later on. So again, those are the 8 foundational areas. The analysis is the next area that I just want to briefly go over. The development capacity analysis, it is required under the land use article for every jurisdiction as they do their comprehensive plan, and every 3 years after it, they're supposed to revisit that. It's been in the development capacity was the heart of the growth model that we've had past. What we found as we started to look at and modernize our growth model was that the most important part was the capacity analysis. There were other portions that dealt with what I call the predictive nature, proximity to various infrastructure roads that would help in determining likely areas of development. But that's an area that we've actually downplayed and are not going to advance at this time. The most important part is development capacity analysis. But as you can see at the bottom, all those data sources that really flow into calculation of that. And again, we look forward to working with you, and we're interested, quite frankly, finding out more about local examples of how to do development capacity analysis that we may be able to learn from you. So I encourage you to contact a regional planner or me with regard to the development capacity analysis. You've already heard about this. There was a presentation by Deborah Sward about this, and they're formerly known as the land use land cover, but it's a statewide land use map. We're currently working on a 2020 update version right now. There were previous versions. It relies, again, a lot on that Maryland property view data, and then some other important data sets that factor into it. We're going to have some local opportunity for outreach and review of the draft land use plan in the coming months. So please feel free to visit the website on the land use map to look at the methodologies and the changes since 2010. One area that we haven't done, and I think it would be an interesting area for us to start to be able to provide a tool, is for us to work with you to be able to take that existing known development, the zoning, and actually calculate what your actual zoning yields are. Currently, this analysis, we don't have the tool for this thing, but we'd love to be able to develop it. And we think that it could be a useful tool, particularly at the local level, as you start to do comprehensive plan updates, or try to when you do your evaluations, the effectiveness of your zoning ordinance, to figure out, well, what kind of yields are we actually getting out of our current zoning? Again, if locally you've developed tools like this, we'd love to hear about them. Again, we think that they can be useful in informing your affordability analysis for housing. And again, it may also help in improving the design of our neighborhoods. Finally, there's an area of projections that, again, I'm not going to dwell in much. Al will deal with this, but we obviously work with the Census Bureau, and Al and his group develop projections. We really think that the building permit data can provide us a more targeted ability to look closely at the projections, and where the building permit data, particularly in multifamily, is not as clear as we'd like to have it. And again, we can talk more about that, or Al can approach that. So finally, we're going to talk just briefly about the metrics. This is the area that is far into the future. We have to build the first 2 up more so, but there are opportunities for future metrics. There's the ability to do some trend analysis. We already have a land stability tool that we have, but we would like to do further with that. And as I mentioned before, provide some information on proximity analysis that may be useful. At this point, I'm going to transfer the presentation of the over to Al, and if Michael can unmute Al and let Al speak, and I will advance the slides as he goes.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Chuck went over a lot of resources that could be of help with the development of the growth model. I'm going to highlight some of the tools and resources that we have at the Department of Planning that could be of help with your data and research needs. On the State Data Center website, we have the following data. I'm going to highlight a few of these just so people are aware of what we have. Starting with the census data, which we have available for all the geographies in Maryland. We also have historical census data as well on the website. The historical census data could be of help when you're doing some trend analysis. Next year, when we have the 2020 census data available, we will post it on our website as soon as we get hold of the data. We also have socioeconomic data from the American Community Survey on our website. This data is available for most of the geographies except for census blocks. It's available for all the other geographies in Maryland. We have this data posted on our website, and we update this data every year as soon as the Census Bureau releases that information. We have data for the last 15 years on our website. Again, another resource that could be used to do some trend analysis. We also post data for the jobs and income from the Bureau of Economic Analysis on our website. This data is available at the county geography level, and we try to update this as soon as we have the latest data that's available from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. We have migration data, not only from IRS data, but also from the American Community Survey as well. The migration data helps to see at the county level and also the state level where residents are migrating from. I mean, from which county are they migrating to your county of interest, or which county are they moving out to? And also this helps you see the net gain in population through migration as well. We update this information as soon as the data is released by the Census Bureau. This data is typically released once every 3 years or so. So we are currently working on the latest information that we got, and we will have that available on the website in the next month or so. We also publish ag census data, or the agricultural census data, every 5 years. The ag census is done every 5 years. So we recently updated the ag census data on the website. The ag census has information on the types of crops and the sales of agricultural products, and also information on the farms and farmlands in Maryland as broken down to the county level. This will help you look at the change in farmland, basically the acres of farmland that has changed from previous censuses, to see how the change in farmland has happened and what kind of a relationship it has with the land use patterns of the particular area. And also you can, we have information on the demographics of farmers, which is unusually high. It's over 65 years, the median age of a farmer in Maryland. So that's something to keep in mind. Yes. Finally, we also post building permit data on our website. Like Chuck mentioned earlier, we get this information from the Census Bureau. And this information is only posted at the county level geography, because that's what the Census Bureau releases the information at. And I'm aware that some of the counties and municipalities share the building permits data with the Census Bureau either on a monthly or an yearly basis. But the Census Bureau doesn't publish the information, the same information that they receive from the counties and municipalities. They impute the data, either because of time constraints or to meet their specific needs, I guess. And I wasn't clear on why that data is not published the way it is clearly. But with that knowledge, we can't really use the building permits information when we are doing, say, school projections, which we update every year, or population projections. So we would like to work with you to explore ways on how this data can be shared with the state also, because you're already doing it with the Census Bureau. So we will get into a little more details on that a little later. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our projections, which is on the next slide. We do several different projections, which could be a useful resource when you update your comprehensive plans, starting with population projections, which we do at the county geography level for all the 23 counties and Baltimore City. We update our population projections once every 3 years. And we use our population projections as a base for housing units and household projections, which we do. Our projections are done in 5-year increments, and they go all the way to 2045. The reason why we use population projections as a base for housing units and households projections is basically because we don't have clear data or accurate enough data from building permits. What we do is typically use the building permits data to compare if the recent growth that we see in the counties is accurate enough, because we use a different methodology, the cohort component method, using migration, births, and deaths to project the population. So the building permit data could be very useful with this type of analysis or check, and also give us other means of doing predictions, which could be useful. We also do predictions for jobs by industry at the county level. And we also do projections using this jobs information for personal income and per capita income at the county level as well. And finally, we also do school enrollment projections every year, and this information is shared with all the county school districts, and they provide us feedback. And we have, by law, we are supposed to be within 5% of the county's own projections, and we work with the counties to reconcile any differences we might have before we publish our projections every year on our website. And the way we do school projections, we use a different method, not different method, we use the grade succession method, basically looking at how many kids are in one grade and how many kids will be in the next grade in the following year. But most of the local jurisdictions use building permits data for basically residences or residential building permit data, and develop a housing yield methodology, meaning how many residences would yield how many students, or if there's a single family home, how many students would end up being in the school. And this is a little more accurate in a way, because like, based on the new development or anticipated development that's happening, you would see students. For us, we would only see this trend after the students are in school. So it would be a little more helpful to have access to the building permit data for this type of predictions as well. And next, I'm going to talk about some of the resources and tools we have. In the past, we have been posting our projection data, the socioeconomic data, or every data which I went over, as Excel and PDF tables. Now, what we are trying to do, or we have already started doing, is have this data presented on data dashboards as in an interactive way, where the data could be displayed or is displayed as a chart and is interactive for the user to select the geography and the variable to see any trend or what the data looks like for a particular geography. Right now, we have created a census response rates dashboard, which shows the responses at the county and the municipal geographies interactively. And this data is updated on a daily basis using an API from the Census Bureau. And we also have an interactive dashboard for the American Community Survey, where you can select an area of interest, either a geography by typing in an address or by clicking on a map to select the geography. And the interactive map lists all the data, the ACS data that's available for that geography. And in the near future, we are planning on having a dashboard for our school enrollment predictions. And we are also going to definitely have a dashboard to have when we get the new 2020 census data, and we will have that available in that way. We still would have the CSV files and the Excel files, which most of the people who are sophisticated users want to download and connect them to their GIS applications and create their own maps. We will still provide that, but on top of that, we are trying to make it a little more user-friendly for people who are going to be accessing and using data. A couple of other resources which I would like to go over. We also post our data on the Open Data Portal, which is a statewide website that has a lot of resources from all the departments and some other counties. And the Department of Planning has by far the largest data sets on the Open Data Portal. We have over 90 different data sets posted, and we keep them current and update them as soon as we get new data. And the final item I would like to mention is, like, we also post GIS related maps on the MDI map. That's also a statewide feature, which could be of help looking at land uses and property information. And finally, this is what we would like to do. These are our next steps, I guess. I went over several resources which could be useful with your planning related work. Here is what we at the Department of Planning are planning on doing next. We would like to understand how you collect and use your building permits data. So to understand that, we are going to do a survey like Chuck mentioned. And this survey is going to be sent to all the jurisdictions and probably the municipalities, so to get feedback on how the building permit data is collected and used. And the other thing I would want to talk about a little is how can we do better to improve the data accessibility? I mean, like, we would like to get feedback on how to improve our dashboards and visualizations, getting feedback from as basically the users, the locals. And we also would like to set up trainings and our webinars to show how you can access census data using APIs. And in the end, what we would like to do is create a cost-effective process where the data we have, we would like to share it with you. And on the same token, some of the data you have, which could be useful to us, you could share it with us. I guess that's the idea behind what I was trying to talk. Again, like, how can you help? Like I talked about a little bit about sharing building permit data, which could be really useful, not only with the growth model, but also with the projections we do in-house, which is in most cases used in your plans, comprehensive plans, or other research you might be doing. So those are some of the ways you could help us. Let's see. And
So Al,
I did mention, yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you have one more thought?
No. I mean, like, I was basically going to quickly highlight a couple of things at the next steps, either to set up like a work group or task force to get feedback from our attendees and our people from their office who directly work with the building permit data, and see how we can work collaboratively to put something together that could be shared by the counties with us, and also what we have that we can share with the counties. Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Al.
Covered everything I wanted to go over.
Thanks, Al. Just to reiterate, in fact, I benefited from a presentation that Al and his group did just earlier this week with the census group. It was fascinating to me, and I'm going to encourage Al to actually participate and do have his group do additional webinars dealing with how to use the census as well as all of the other uh, Bureau of Economic and all the other data sets that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. I found it very fascinating that and kind of pleasantly pleased to see how much data is out there. So at this point, we have received a few comments. I want to make sure that we keep on schedule here. So, but I want to encourage those that have submitted or have any questions. I do have a few here. One, I just want to go back to Andrew's presentation and let him know that we'll follow up with and maybe an email on this, or our follow-up is there was a question about do we have a list of projected projects for brownfield sites that are in the works? And I know that the Department of Planning also has developed a brownfields website. So if you Google Maryland Department of Planning brownfields technical assistance, you will come to a website that we have developed that has a series of case studies regarding brownfields. And so, again, that's an area, and I'm sure Jason Dubois and his staff would be glad to assist you, as well as I'm sure Andrew's group. One of the questions we had about noting that about the parcel level data from Quantum was noted to be very good, and we appreciate all of that. The one question we have is, how does the LPPRP information inform the growth model? Rachel asked that question, and the answer to that will be that the information from that land preservation will showing the easements and showing those areas that are permanently protected are essentially removed from the capacity analysis. And so the development rights for those parcels are removed. It helps us reduce and make more realistic the future build out capacities in communities. Again, we work with locals in this, and they obviously inform us in that process. Another question we had was, could you please add me to the list, updated list for your dashboards? Very interested. We'll certainly do that. The Department of Planning sends out newsletter or e-blasts from the department when we update our website and our dashboards. As Al indicated, that we are very interested in possibly having local participation and peer review of our dashboards and our data sets. So we would welcome your participation in that. At this point, I don't have any more questions that are coming in. I will just reiterate, we are going to send out probably by the end of this week to everyone on this mailing list that participated, that registered, or that were invited to participate through a planning director's contact list that we have, to complete a 15-question survey. You can get this done in less than 5 minutes, probably 3 minutes. Our regional planners are going to help me get 100% completion, and from all 24 counties, 23 plus Baltimore City of the counties, and certainly, I want to get all the municipalities I can. I know many counties, I know many municipalities use the county's permitting system, which is what we're trying to determine. And so please look forward to that. You'll see an email from me. Please don't ignore it. I am persistent, and I will. I'll find you. Even if one. It's fine if multiple people from the same jurisdiction respond. If you want to coordinate it, that's fine. We'll consolidate everything together and come back and contact you, or what we're really asking for is the best contact at the local level who knows about the building permit system and the building permit software that you're using. We want to just be able to get that list of those people, those contacts. We want to be able to know what kind of systems you have. And we also want to know if you're currently doing any reporting of building permit activity. So it's a very short, simple survey. I'm telling you, it won't be any problem. So I appreciate that. I don't see any more questions. So I've obviously answered everything, or overwhelmed you, or bored you. I'm not sure which. But at this point, I don't want to take away from any more of the time that Joe Griffiths has for the next agenda item. So at this point, I think I'm going to, here's our contact information, but please contact us, and Joe will take over now.
Thank you, Chuck. And many of you know me, but I'm Joe Griffiths from Maryland Department of Planning. I'm the local assistance and training manager. And I know we're running over time here, and I don't want to take any time away from the planning directors who have volunteered to share some of their experiences later on. So I'm going to truncate this presentation a little bit. But I know we've had a few presentations already to this group. I'm happy for anyone who wants to follow up with me afterwards. But anybody who is interested in a deeper dive, or perhaps getting the planning commissioners in a deeper dive, I am doing a 50-minute session on this tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock as part of a MPCA workshop, and I can send you an invite to that if you have not received it. So I'm going to be talking about what we developed for the models and guidelines to respond to House Bill 1045. All right, just a quick recap of the requirements. House Bill 1045 passed in 2019. And it was effective June 1st of this year. And it says for all new comprehensive plans that a housing element shall be included and address the need for affordable housing to include workforce housing defined at 60 to 120% of HUD's area median income, and low income housing, which is less than 60% of area median income. For the development process, we met with this group, at least some of you, twice. We kind of kicked off this effort last September, a year ago. We also met with you in April. Internally, we conducted an inventory of housing elements in existing comp plans. We know that many of you are already addressing affordable housing and housing in your comp plans. So we looked to those to see what was already happening. We looked for similar guidance in other states. We conducted research into common affordable housing practices, and we also did in-reach with our partners at the Department of Housing and Community Development. In early 2020, we developed a stakeholder advisory group made up of local housing planners, other state agencies, and housing organizations like those in the areas of finance, housing development, and advocacy. And they met 4 times and provided essential feedback. Here's some of that feedback. I'm not going to read it all to you, but they definitely stressed the importance of engagement, made the case for affordable housing, talked about how there are many existing resources already out there. We know we're not the first ones doing this, and those are included as well on our models and guidelines. The importance of density through zoning and incentives, infrastructure availability, and the desire that we provide assistance with analyses and best practices and examples. These are the components of the models and guidelines. This is the landing page introduction. The link is down there. We've been trying to market it heavily, so hopefully you've seen it already. That includes a section on housing planning, self-assessments, housing data, housing practices, and affordable housing resources. We included 3 self-assessments for jurisdictions to use to both initiate internal and stakeholder conversations about affordable housing. We have one on visioning, analysis and policy, and implementation and regulation. All right, to switch to housing data, I'm going to just briefly show you our dashboard that we created. You'll see it here. And the point of this is to include as much housing information and supporting spatial information as possible into one dashboard, and we're still developing this. It has different geographies that you can switch between. Right now it's on county, but you can also look at tract or place level. This includes census designated places and incorporated places. So right now we have it on Anne Arundel. If you switch it to Kent, it's a little delayed right here, you'll see that these this ACS data charts at the bottom switch. You can hover over them to get specific counts. to learn more. Something else we created, we have a spreadsheet working in the background on this, is this what we're calling an AMI calculator. Since the House Bill 1045 requires jurisdictions to plan based on HUD's area median income, we provide some helpful calculations here. First, it'll give the AMI for a jurisdiction or an income limit area. Sometimes that's a rural county, or sometimes that might be a larger region like the Washington Metro region. It gives that AMI, but then it also breaks it down based on those ranges that the bill requires. So it gives the range of household incomes and down to low income and workforce. But it goes a step further and calculates affordable monthly costs for workforce, low income households based on the standard threshold of 30% of household income. If you spend less than that, you're not considered housing burden. If you spend over, you're more housing, or you are housing burden. So the idea is you can compare what the AMI numbers are telling you with what you're seeing down here in ACS data when it comes to monthly owner costs, gross rent, and there's a lot of demographic information in here as well. I do want to stress that AMI is not, there's some limitations to AMI, because if you look at, for example, let's go to the Washington Metro income limit area, which is very large, includes Maryland, the city, and counties from Virginia. That's a very high AMI, and that number does not correctly reflect what a median household income is for any jurisdiction within that. So we included in here, noting that that's what the bill requires, but we also want to point out the limitations of AMI as a number on its own to really explain incomes in your community. This also includes GIS layers. Down here, I'm not going to put them on now due to time, but all sorts of designations, infrastructure layers that you can add to get a sense, you can compare that to what you're seeing on the data dashboard. We have other ACS data working in the back, or it's in the background. We didn't put them all in charts, but you can export the reports at the same geography levels into PDF documents. And then we also include links to other sources of housing data, including DHCD's housing data, but also all that state data center data that Al was just discussing are also included. And we're looking to continue building on this, and I'm giving it not nearly enough time to explain everything it has on it. So I encourage you to go look at what we have in there. So we go back to presentation. All right, I was going to really dig into our model housing element development process, but I'm just going to give a quick overview. The model housing element development process is designed to help the user or somebody planning, developing a housing element to go through all the steps from visioning to implementation. It walks through the user through these steps. It suggests how and where to insert data from both the dashboard and data developed locally. It models a potential outline, format, and order for a housing element, and it also includes example goals, objectives, and strategies that a jurisdiction may want to consider. Now, that list is not intended to be comprehensive, but particularly for jurisdictions doing a housing element for the first time, they might help give them some ideas. But I also don't want you to think that our housing, the M&G, is only for jurisdictions doing it for the first time. We think there's a lot of great information on there for those jurisdictions that maybe want to take the housing plan to the next level or really look closer at affordable housing in their community. After the model housing element development process, we have a common practices section. It includes descriptions of 7 common practices, which we pulled from the inventory I described earlier of Maryland housing elements and described in greater detail. The stakeholder group I mentioned addressed and discussed these common practices. They include things like inclusionary zoning, accessory dwelling units, preserving existing affordable housing, partnerships with nonprofits, and financing and incentives. But they're just real broad, high-level overviews. We encourage any more feedback or information from you all, and we will continue to develop them and with more details and make them more robust. Also, this is where we're going to be including best practices as part of our phase 2 development, which I will revisit in a minute. Next, we have a Power BI table, which I'm going to show you on affordable housing resources. This gets into that implementation of that last phase. Again, the models and guidelines are designed to provide assistance from visioning and engagement all the way through to implementation. So I have that here real quick. All right, so it's a Power BI table. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this. We have a SharePoint list working in the background, but it is as comprehensive of a list as we have right now. We're looking to continue adding more. If you are aware of more resources that you would like us to add, we're even adding local resources as well. You'll see some of those in here. We actually have them categorized: county, federal, foundation, state, and technical assistance. So we'll just pick state here. It'll filter it, and there's also resource type, financing assistance, grants, loans, and you can select multiple ones if you want to. So we'll just go with grants here. So this will show you state grants related to affordable housing. All right. It's a little narrow, but that's kind of the limitations of our website. But it'll have the program description, the name with a link, any match requirements if it's a grant, eligibility requirements. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, we know we are not the only ones that have developed resources. At the bottom here, we have some excellent ones as well. I really encourage anybody to check out this Local Housing Solutions website if you have not. It's extremely comprehensive, giving very detailed explanations of different strategies and examples. It's an excellent website that we actually leaned on heavily when we were doing our development of this. So again, this is that implementation phase. And it's all, you can see if you go to the website, you'll see all of those components I talked about are all here on the side, including those self-assessments, which I didn't have a chance to share, but we encourage you to look at. I want to talk about phase 2, because while we did, Chuck said we posted this a month ago. It was actually June. So it's been out there for a little while, and we're continuing to work to improve it. For phase 2, we have some data additions we want to add to the dashboard, including foreclosures and days on market at the county level. There's also a parallel effort going on right now by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. They're doing a housing needs assessment statewide. Many MDP staff members are on their advisory group, and they're developing at the census tract level 2 indices of housing needs for both renters and homeowners. And there are a lot of variables going into that. They're still finalizing it. But we're going to be hopefully taking that census tract level data and adding that as well to the dashboard. We also want to develop a compare function. So you can compare census tract to census tract, or a census tract within a county, or a designated place or incorporated place within a county. So you're not just looking at it in isolation. And then also the big thing of phase 2, and this was stressed by the stakeholder group, and I know it's a great way, something a lot of jurisdictions want for learning, are local examples and best practices. So the next thing, I'm going to ask you all for some assistance if you are able to provide it. There's this thing called Mentimeter. I don't know if you all have used this site. We're using the free version. I encourage it. It's great for online engagement. But if you could go, if you have your cell phone on you, please go to www.menti.com and type in the code 5872009, and you will see this question. Provide an example of an affordable housing implementation best practice. If you have it, we'd love as much information as possible. Please include the jurisdiction, the program name, contact, and any other details. If you don't have all that, pointing us in the right direction would be great. It's going to show up on the screen here. We're developing our own list. We have a pretty substantial list already, but best practices are some of those things sometimes best known locally. So if you could just take a minute or two and go on to www.menti.com, type in that code, you'll see it at the top, and it'll say vote. I think that's what it says, vote or comment. And then you can type something in, and it'll show up on the screen. Like you could just say the name of the county does a great job with housing preservation, and that'll give us some insight on where to look. Feel free to brag about your own jurisdiction. We would love to hear what you all are doing, but it doesn't have to be. If you know something, even if it's outside of the state, you know something going on elsewhere. That's a big one. Yeah, I mean, something we definitely talked about with the stakeholders and a lot of folks throughout this process is, the public engagement portion, convincing people of the importance of this, understanding what their neighbors and residents and future residents and stakeholders need. Yeah, empathy is an important one. Love any other examples. Again, brag about yourself if you like. All right, well, I'm gonna give this one more minute, but I don't want to hold it up because we do have some volunteer planning directors that are going to be sharing their experiences in the next section, and I want to make sure they have plenty of time to discuss. If you can think of a best practice or an example that you would like to share from your jurisdiction or another, my email is going to be at the end here. joseph.griffiths@maryland.gov. We'd love to have those examples. Great. Excellent. Thank you. The town of Denton example. That's a great example of how you can combine partnerships with financial incentives, partnerships both from the state down to the local level. Okay, well, I know I kind of sprung this on a lot of folks, so maybe, again, if you think of something that you would like to share, my email will be at the end here. I really would love to share your examples so other jurisdictions can learn, because some jurisdictions are going to be addressing this for the first time. All right, Habitat is an excellent partner, see another one there. While a lot of jurisdictions will be doing this for the first time, in our inventory, we noticed a lot of them didn't even have housing elements, or they didn't address affordable housing. Those jurisdictions have been doing this for years. It would be, your examples can really inform those jurisdictions doing it for the first time. I also want to point out that the Maryland Department of Planning and the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development offer our technical assistance in this process. We know there will be a lot of new comprehensive plans with the release of the new census data, and they're going to require a housing element that meets the requirements of House Bill 1045, specifically addressing those AMI levels. And we recommend that those AMI levels be included in the comprehensive plan. And they're updated each year, and we'll update our own data each year. So anyway, there will be, this is going to be a new requirement for a lot of folks. All right, well, thank you for your comments. You can actually keep on commenting on this if you want to. I'm going to go away from the screen, but I'm going to keep it open. If you want to add something you think about in 10, 15 minutes, even 30 minutes, you'll be able to add it, and then I'll have this saved. And here is my email address. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them, but like I mentioned, I would like to transition to the next group. You can, the next session, you can always email me there. And a reminder, if you want a deeper dive, or specifically your planning commissioners or board of zoning appeals members have a deeper dive, we have a free MPCA, Maryland Planning Commissioner Association workshop tomorrow from 9 to 11:30. I'll be presenting on the housing, the same thing, but more deeply, from 9 to 10. And then we actually have Chuck Marone from Strong Towns doing the presentation from 10 to 11:30. Any questions, Chuck?
Yeah, just a couple real quick ones to point out that Megan says that she would, if we could send her an invite, she'll share it with the BMC about the training, so we'll certainly do that. Amy Mordock said that Queen Anne's County partners with nonprofit organizations to redevelop, demo/replace homes for LMI and for transitional housing. Lynn Miller also said Kate Cook from Anne Arundel County Community Development Services we'll have some good examples for you to think about. So I want to check in with Anne Arundel Community Development Services. And then Amy also pointed out Queen Anne is looking for potential cottage home text amendment to allow for flexible single-family detached provisions as an infill development. So it'd be interesting to learn more about what Queen Anne's County is doing in that area. Those are all the comments, questions raised at this point, Joe.
All right, and they're in the chat, so I'll be able to add those to the list. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, we're continuing to develop this. It's not a finished product. We want to make it stronger and better, and we look for your feedback and your examples to help us do that. So please reach out to me or any of the regional planners that you might be more familiar with for your region. All right, I think I'm also leading this next section. So let me just start off by saying it is an understatement that maintaining operations over the past 6 months has been a challenge. From public hearings to community engagement, jurisdictions around the state have had to quickly adapt to our new digital world. Following a bumpy spring for some, many counties and municipalities have developed successful processes for ensuring the work of planning departments moves forward. We have 4 planning directors here today to share their experiences, and I thank them for volunteering. And we encourage your questions and lessons learned following their comments. All right. First, we're going to turn it over to Jill Baker, the Director of the Washington County Planning and Zoning. Michael, if you could unmute Jill, or maybe she already is. Jill, and Jill, if you would like to share your camera, you can. Otherwise, we can keep it on. I'll keep it on the screen.
Sure, thanks, Joe. Good morning, everybody. I don't have a webcam, just one of the many hiccups from COVID. We don't have webcams here at the county, but so, you know, we had to adapt pretty quickly as everybody else did. And I'm going to start off by giving a shout out to Kathy Marr over at the City of Hagerstown here in Washington County. We copied a lot of what they did, massaged it to our needs, but we between the city and the county have pretty fantastic staff that not only know planning, but also are pretty technical and understand all the newfangled technology that some of us may not understand. So really what we did is we lost 1 month in April. We just could not adapt quickly enough to the closing of the buildings and then figuring out how to get public input. So we did lose 1 month, but all things considered, I think that was a pretty good success that we only lost a single month. We basically moved everything over to Zoom meetings for Planning Commission, rezoning meetings, and our Board of Zoning Appeals. Our county is particularly running off of Zoom meetings right now. So with our Planning Commission, what we did is we advertised as we typically do, and then we notified people who might be interested in how to attend, giving them the passcode, so forth and so on. Using best practices, again, we didn't publish those codes. We were afraid of disruption from the general public if we published those access codes, but so far we've been very successful in making sure everybody gets to comment and have their opinions heard. Board of Zoning Appeals went a little bit differently. They continue to meet in person as a board. We are using our social distancing protocols, but what we did is to schedule specific times for each of the cases, and then we can't, obviously we have to limit the number of cases in an evening, but we schedule times to try to keep as few people in the room as possible. So while the board is meeting in person, the public is only allowed in, I should say not the public, but the applicants are only allowed in on a rotating basis. As far as the general public is concerned, the Board of Zoning Appeals does allow the general public to enter into the meetings, to comment. So we do still have a public comment session that goes along with that. Our Zoom has provided us the opportunity to record those meetings and post those up to our website. With our Planning Commission, we go a step further with that. We not only allow the public to participate if they request to do so, but we also live stream those meetings to both our county Facebook page and our YouTube page. As part of that, again, we record and post that up. So that was one of the, in my opinion, one of the bright sides to this COVID situation, is that it gave us the opportunity to promote a different aspect to get out to the public. I think we have found with tracking the views and so forth that we have had much more interest in our Planning Commission meetings and so forth with the live streaming than we ever did just having regular in-person meetings. So I think, you know, the upside to that is that it produced a better output to our public and engagement from that perspective. We also worked very hard to communicate with our local media, our newspaper, our local TV station, and all of our partners in the media to get as much information into the newspapers and so forth as possible, in terms of not just advertising, but you know, individual articles, things like that, to again try to engage the public and let them know that we are continuing our services and that we are still listening and asking for public input. This has also prompted us to move forward with things like electronic submittals. We never had that before, so that was a new aspect that we had to adjust to pretty quickly. We still don't have a quote-unquote electronic submittal platform, but we are working on that to integrate into our current building permit tracking software. I know, you know, that Chuck had mentioned doing a survey on that. Washington County uses a Acela tracking software. Chuck, I will still respond to your email, even though I just mentioned that. So, like I said, while it was challenging, things were happening rapidly. We had to change our policies. Overall, I feel like this was in Washington County sort of a blessing in disguise in some cases, where again it gave us a better opportunity to reach out to the public that we may not have thought of or moved toward otherwise. So that's just a couple things that are happening here in Washington County. I know time is limited, so I don't want to bog the conversation down too much, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Jill. I think we'll save the questions for the end after everybody speaks, but I think you make a very good point, and I've heard this from a lot of other directors, that, you know, and planning staff, you're forced to implement all these new procedures and processes because of the situation. It might have been tough at first, but it actually yielded a lot of benefits in many respects, and there's going to be some carryover even once we're back to working as normal. You know, maybe better ways to digitally engage our residents and stakeholders. You talked about adding electronic submissions now, so I mean, nobody wanted to be in this situation, obviously, but there are some good takeaways that we can build upon in the future. So thank you, Jill. Next, I'm going to move on to Bill Mackey, the Director of Planning, Housing, and Zoning in Kent County. Bill, you can also share your camera if you'd like to.
Hey, good morning. Thanks. I want to talk a little bit about the Kent County Comprehensive Rezoning and Update process that we've just launched. Similar to some of the methods that Jill talked about for our public meetings, we've moved to a Teams platform, includes phone calls, but we don't have an in-person option. When we put together the plan for the comprehensive rezoning, one of the things that we wanted to do was to have an initial public forum and ask people how would they like to receive and give input in this process. And that was originally scheduled for April. We punted that down the road a little because of COVID and not being able to have people come in the building, et cetera. And then we decided to just move forward in August using the tools we have. We reached out with what I call traditional means, newspaper ads, email, et cetera, to folks, and let them know we're having a public forum and we want to learn how you would like to be communicated with. And the reason I wanted to share this was I thought it was interesting. There was a component of folks who really wanted to push the whole process off and wait for the pandemic to pass before we continued that. And the county it's been about 20 years since they've looked at the comprehensive or the process and redone the zoning code. So I think there's some discomfort about not moving forward with that. But the part I found most interesting was there were folks who said, can we have an in-person element? So, and I thought that was sort of an exciting hybrid way to approach it, because certainly there's folks on we have a recently appointed task force to steer us in this process who, don't want to meet publicly, completely understandable, and want the safety of remote meetings. So this is an initial report. We're sort of putting together a format where we're going to try to meet in large public spaces where people can be spaced apart 6 feet. An audience of folks who want to attend in person can come. There'll be a podium, a camera, a microphone, and we're going to migrate from Teams to Zoom. Zoom seems to have some more flexibility for us. And we'll have the Zoom presentation on the wall with all of the task force and anyone who wants to participate remotely. And then at a certain point in the meeting, the folks in that room will join and be another box in the gallery and be able to come up to the podium and speak. So that's what we're working on. We're using CARES funding to purchase all those things because we would never need to do that except for COVID. And moving forward, we're hoping that having this sort of hybrid meeting where there's an in-person element, a remote element, and phone in as well. You don't even need a computer, or if you don't want to phone in, you can just watch via live stream and view the meeting. That those give people a wide variety of platforms, right? Phone, computer, and in person to engage in the task force as we start the process of discussing comprehensive rezoning of Kent County. And that's my alarm to say that I am out of my 3 minutes. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. You really, you didn't have to put an alarm on yourself, but you met it. You met it. Well, that's interesting that you're bringing up this in-person hybrid component, and that some people still really desire that. You have to listen to stakeholders and residents that want that in-person component. But it's also, I think a lot of people will be interested to learn how that goes, because as there's going to be a long period of transition, and those hybrid aspects, those hybrid processes will probably become the next area of focus, more so than just how to make a Zoom meeting. So it's like kind of the next phase, moving into the next one. So thank you for that insight.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Next we have Ed Tudor, the Director of Development Review and Permitting in Worcester County. Ed, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Joe, I was going to turn my camera on, but doggone, that picture of me there was taken a couple years ago, and I looked a heck of a lot better than I do today. So I'm going to leave it off, and we'll just keep that one up on the screen.
No problem.
Certainly, we all had a year that we'll never forget. Who would have thought, as we were singing Old Lang Syne last New Year's Eve, that in a few short months we'd be dealing with a global health pandemic. And, on the local level, I would have never thought that within a 2-week period, our county commissioners would be declaring a public health emergency, closing our offices to the public, and restricting short-term rentals. Certainly, caused us to have to reevaluate how we were going to do things. Much like Jill was saying, we lost here in Worcester County just 1 month of our Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission meetings. We just didn't have enough time to get prepared to get online and do the Zoom meetings, but we were back up, and doing those starting in May, and took those through May and June. We have now returned to in-person meetings for both the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission, obviously socially distanced. We've also opened our building on a very limited basis. Staff is seeing constituents on an appointment basis. They are required to make an appointment 24 hours in advance. We give our security guards at the front desk a list of those people every day, whom to expect. and we meet with them in a big meeting room we have on our first floor, again, adequately socially distanced. You know, I thought we were having enough to deal with dealing strictly with the pandemic issues, but on top of it, at least here in Worcester, and I don't know if it pertains completely around the state or not, but the second thing it really hit us is an explosion in the building industry. We are seeing building permit applications and construction activity approaching the mid 2000s levels once again, and that's certainly added to the problems that we've had to deal with. Couple of things I wanted to talk about, little best practices I thought that we were able to implement here that really helped. I know in previous discussions and previous meetings, we had folks talk about how they manage their Zoom meetings and so forth, as far as having people pre-register and things like that. One of the things that worked, I thought, really well here locally, right from the beginning, in my office, we appointed an individual on our staff to serve as the sole coordinator for all the meetings. And that young lady did a fantastic job of getting everything put together as far as coordinating the meetings, getting everybody up to speed on how they worked, educating our Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission meeting members on a one-to-one basis of how to make it all work. Another thing that she did that really helped was provided scripts to all the board members for every single meeting and for every single case, so that they didn't have to flounder and try to come up with things to say. She had everything down where they had a description of the cases that were going to be heard, how things were going to work, how people raised their hands, how they got recognized, and so forth. And that was a really, really, helpful thing to do, I thought. Like I say, we're still trying to deal with the explosion on the construction industry side. We are reevaluating some of our policies and procedures on how we accept applications. It seemed like the busier the construction industry got, the worse the submittals got. So we're in the middle of right now reevaluating, how we are going to accept applications and which ones may be rejected for insufficient information, et cetera. So certainly been an interesting learning experience for all of us. I think, I try to view things always in somewhat of a positive light, but I think it's given us all an indication of just what our weaknesses may have been in dealing with these types of issues. And hopefully we can all learn from it and not forget about it after it's over, much like people do with hurricanes oftentimes here on the shore. After the hurricane's gone, everybody forgets about what they need to do to prepare. And I hope we don't do the same thing in dealing with unknowns like this pandemic that has faced us this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. That's a good point to leave us with. And I will say, you're talking about the building industry explosion and how that's still coming in. I mean, I will say, just from a perspective of the Maryland Department of Planning, we can see that, because we interact with locals, we get our own plans to review from jurisdictions, and we've seen no slowdown in work over the past 6 months. We've probably seen an increase as well. So that is evidence that planning is still happening, development is still happening, and people are maintaining operations. And I think the idea I mentioned about the sole meeting coordinator or point person is well taken. I work closely with the Maryland Planning Commissioners Association. I already mentioned them a few times today. I like to put plugs in them for whenever I can. But one of the things we really focus on in the MPCA is that interaction between professional staff and planning boards, and having that dedicated person to help the planning board and communicate. I think that is a best practice that should be considered, again, like you mentioned, beyond just the current situation. I think that's great. So thank you, Ed. All right, last one, we're going to switch to the municipal perspective. We have LJ Bennett, Community Development Director from the City of Frostburg. Welcome and thank you, LJ.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much, and hello from Frostburg. Certainly one of the best practices we came across during this pandemic was something we had begun to implement pre-COVID. We had ramped up our website and implemented and launched a new software geared specifically for municipal public meetings. It's a Diligent brand program called iCompass. And it streamlines the process of agenda creation, minutes taking, and things like that. And when we went into a shutdown mode and had to move our public meetings to a Zoom platform, it was incredibly helpful in how we organized meetings and got information out to citizens. So we have a meeting portal set up on our website, and citizens can enter that portal basically look at a calendar and click on any day of the month where meeting information has been loaded. And so meeting materials such as site plans and all relevant documents for Planning Commission, Historic District Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, they're all right there for the public to see. And then we're able to share that screen on the Zoom meeting so everyone can follow along with the agenda and look at the materials and see exactly what's happening. What we found from that was that citizens were interested in local planning initiatives, and it really showed in the numbers of views that we had on the live stream videos. So we also live streamed to our city's Facebook page while we were conducting these meetings. And in the past, we'd had very, very low public turnout to meetings and very, very low amounts of public comment on anything that was presented to boards and commissions. And now we're finding that we have exponentially increased our citizen engagement moving to this platform. So that's been, you know, a really surprising success, in my opinion. We're continuing to make improvements as we learn and grow through this experience. We've added a public comment button on our website. In the past, we'd been soliciting public comment through meeting advertisements, and now the public can simply click on a button and let us know what they think, and that's a great improvement as well. We're moving from Facebook live streaming to our own YouTube channel, and that's going to be a more seamless process that's integrated with the iCompass software that we're using. So we'll be able to timestamp different parts of the meeting, and if people want to go back and listen, they can listen to that specific presentation or motion or what have you. There's also a media alert function. So whenever we're setting up agendas or wrapping up minutes, we can quickly and easily email that directly to the media. So that's resulted in some good press, both on Facebook and in our local newspaper. So overall, despite all the difficulties in the learning curve and the technology, we were just so happy to be able to partner with Maryland Department of Planning, Community Development Network, Sustainable Maryland, and the Office of the Attorney General just for help in navigating all the technological changes we were going through and to help us make sure we were in compliance with all the regulations, specifically open meeting regulations and the public hearing regulations that we need to adhere to make sure we're doing everything in the right way. But I think it's safe to say that, you know, a better and more efficient use of technology has just made huge strides in our citizen engagement. And we've been able to gauge citizen interest in planning initiatives in a much better way, because I think it's easier for people to do this remotely rather than come to a meeting. It's just been really incredible to see how those numbers have risen. So, you know, despite just some of the frustrating and difficulties that you experience when you move to new platforms and deal with new technology and experiences, we've really appreciated the increased patience and support from citizens and related agencies. And we really appreciate the increased participation across the board. It's been a great lesson to, you know, just know that you have to be more than reactive, but you have to be proactive and adaptive also in situations like this. And I'm glad to see that we're seeing good come out of it.
Well, thank you, LJ. I know, I mean, the idea of multimedia or varied ways to conduct outreach and seek feedback from your community is nothing new. And I mean, I've been involved in a number of different type projects like that, where we used online surveys and mapping tools and forums. And you know, you get some good engagement, but sometimes it is a little disappointing. But I think maybe we're at a point now where the general public is doing this kind of interaction in their own professional life, in their own personal life, and I think they're better able to meet us halfway. You know, they know, they understand that that's how it's going to be done, and yeah, and hopefully it will continue moving forward. And I I think all four of you mentioned something about partnerships with the media, which I hadn't even thought closely about. So that's thank you for that theme there, and I think that's something that we can all take to heart as a vital partner as well in this. Well, again, thank you, and I don't know if there are any questions or people would like
Joe,
to share. I think yeah.
There is one question from Crystal McDermott. I think this is to Jill. If Michael can unmute Jill. Does the public here? Does the public have to be in person to provide input?
No, we're not requiring in-person public input. What we are saying to people is that you may either email us or you can snail mail us. We've even gone to the point of extending our comment periods. So for example, with our rezoning cases, we may have a public hearing with the Board of County Commissioners, but because the public is not permitted in our buildings yet, we leave that public comment period open for an additional week after those hearings, and then take public comment through, like I said, either email or snail mail. Fortunately, we haven't really had any quote-unquote controversial cases, so we haven't really been tested in our limits of public input, but that's how we're handling it right now. We just started allowing the public back into our commissioner meetings this past week, this past Tuesday. So we'll continue to build on that and allow people, but you do not have to, you're not required to appear in person.
Thank you, Jill. Any closing remarks from you, Joe, and wrapping up the planning during a pandemic?
No, I think I spoke enough. Appreciate appreciate the volunteers. Some of them volunteered just earlier this week or late last week because I was getting help from the regional planners, and they can describe this far better than I. So we just want to thank them. And as Jill just mentioned, that public comment is open for a little while after a meeting. Reminder that the housing local examples will be open on Mentimeter for a little bit more. So I know that's jumping back to a different session, but we love those.
Okay, Joe, thank you very much. This is going to conclude the Maryland Department of Planning's webinar. I want to, again, offer a big thank you to Secretary McCord, Andrew Mingle from the DNR, Jill Baker from Washington County, Bill Mackey from Kent County, Ed Tudor from Worcester County, LJ Bennett from the city of Frostburg, our MVPP staff, Joe Griffiths and Allison Dare for their great presentations. And Michael Baer has done a great job. This is his first time flying solo that I know of with the GoToWebinar. So again, thank him for a complete recording of today's webinar will be posted on the planning.maryland.gov's website at the planning director's page. We'll be sending out a follow-up email for the links to the webinar as well as presentations. We'll include a list of the participants, and we're going to make sure that we get the information to those folks. Maybe a quick email out, Joe. I'll work with you to send out folks in case they're interested in participating in the MPCA conference tomorrow or training tomorrow. Again, additionally, we'll be sending out an email to every one of the planning directors roundtable email list for completion of the building permit software survey. I appreciate your participation. Again, short survey. I beg your indulgence. We'll only need this one person per jurisdiction, but if multiple people, that's not a problem. Keep an eye out on the planning.maryland website and our monthly newsletter, Planning Practice Monthly. And feel free to visit our smartgrowth.org website, which we maintain. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's endeavor moving forward in these challenging times. Continue to do great work. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at chuck.boyd@maryland.gov. And have a great day. Again, thank you so much for participating.